Welcome to the second tutorial on Flight Sim World's Pro Mission Editor. In this tutorial we'll use PME to extend the basic airport-to-airport mission which we generated in the first tutorial video. Here's the mission diagram. The mission starts at Alderney, where the player takes off in a Piper Seneca, flies to Jersey and lands at the airport EGJJ. We're going to extend the mission by introducing an extra task. Find a cruise ship located at sea somewhere south of Alderney before continuing on to Jersey. Let's look at the map. So we're going to place a ship somewhere between Alderney and Jersey. This extension will require us to introduce a number of modules into the mission. We'll need to add a point of interest module to direct the player to the cruise ship and a scenery library object to depict the ship. In addition, we'll need to add a proximity trigger at the location of the cruise ship together with an area rectangle to test that the player has flown to the trigger location. And lastly, we'll need dialogue actions to direct the player towards the cruise ship point of interest and what to do when this has been achieved. Okay, let's start. Bring up the action palette and find the point of interest entry. Double click it and the module appears in the area below the mission diagram as it is not assigned a location as yet. We need to name it, so double click in the title area and enter the text Cruise Ship POI. And click enter. OK. The POI requires a point of interest activation action module, so find this module's entry in the action palette, double click it, and we'll name this module Activate Cruise Ship POI. So double click in the white area, and click OK. Double click in the blue area to open the attributes. And now we want to link the POI to the activation. So we drag the POI up to the object reference list. And now you'll see that the two modules are linked together. Next we create a proximity trigger to detect when the player has reached the cruise ship area. So bring up the action palette and find the proximity trigger entry. Double click to create the module and enter the name Cruise Ship Proximity Trigger. And click OK. The proximity trigger requires an object activation module, so look for this module's name in the action palette list and double click it to create that module, and now we'll make the name Activate Cruise Ship Proximity Trigger. Now press enter and link the proximity trigger to its activation by dragging it to the object reference list. And there it appears at the bottom of the mission module diagram. The proximity trigger requires a rectangle area module to define the trigger boundaries. So bring up the action palette again and find the rectangle area entry. double click it, and we'll call this cruise ship proximity trigger area. Press OK. Now we wish to link that to the proximity trigger itself, so double click in the red area to bring up the attributes. Scroll back down to the rectangular area and drag it across to the area entry for the proximity trigger attributes there. And now you'll see that the three modules are all linked together. We can now use the map window to set the location of this rectangular area. Click on the Windows tab and select Map. Click inside the new rectangle area module and drag it to the desired location on the map, say somewhere between Alderney and Jersey. Before continuing, we have to convince PME that we really want the area module in this location. To do this, look closely at the module's latitude and longitude parameters here. Click beside the latitude entry and then the longitude entry. You'll see that the longitude disappears, but don't worry, the workaround is as follows. Reposition the rectangle area between the two islands, go back to the longitude and latitude, but click the longitude first and then the latitude, and you'll notice that the rectangle area stays in the same position and we don't lose the world position. We can now close the map. In the area's attributes box, you will see that the default size of the rectangle area is only 200 meters wide and 200 meters long. So we need to make that a little bit larger. So let's enter 1,000 for width and 1,000 for length. And for the height, we'll increase it from 200 meters to 2,000 meters. This will give us a large enough box for the cruise ship proximity trigger area. When the player flies to the cruise ship, he'll have a big enough box to actually trigger this particular point. We now want a cruise ship scenery library object. So bring up the action palette once more and find library object. There we go. Double click it. Close the map so we can see what we're doing. We're going to call it cruise ship, believe it or not. Press enter and the attributes come up over here. Now we need to set the model category, so we go over here and we go down to Global Generic and Vehicle Libraries. Click that. We now want to set the model GUID. Well, actually we want to select its name. There's a big list. Go all the way down to vehicles, and we want vehicles C or water, and there's cruise ship 1, cruise ship 2. We'll select cruise ship 1. There we have it, and that's it. The cruise ship will appear in the mission. It does not need activating as such. The fact that it is a module in the bottom of the mission diagram is sufficient. Now, the cruise ship and the point of interest share the same world position as the trigger's rectangle area. So, double click on the area module. It's up here. Double click on it, and its attributes appear here. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy the world position and we're going to paste that into, first of all, the cruise ship POI. So get the cruise ship POI attributes up and paste it. And then go down to the cruise ship library object, double click it, and again paste into its world position. And so the rectangle area, the POI and the cruise ship library object will all share the same world position coordinates. When the player finds the cruise ship, they'll trigger the proximity trigger, and subsequently they'll need further instructions, and this can be done with a dialogue action. So bring up the action palette, double click on the dialogue action entry. We'll call this dialogue cruise ship dialogue. Press enter and we'll say fly on to Jersey and land. As I said before, we'll deal with the sound file name at a later time. The player will see this in these instructions without a sound file. Now we want to link this dialogue action to the proximity trigger, which is here. So double click on it, go back down to the dialogue action and place it into the object reference. So you can see that when the cruise ship proximity trigger fires, then the dialogue action will be executed. We'll activate the cruise ship POI after the player has taken off and climbed above 200 feet. So we'll now link this POI activation module to the climb out property trigger we saw before. Scroll back up to the property trigger, which is here, double click it and its attributes come up. Scroll down to the POI activation and drag it across to the object reference list there. And you'll see that it appears below the property trigger. We do the same for the cruise ship proximity trigger. With the property trigger's attributes still displayed, scroll down to the proximity trigger activation and drag it across again to the on the actions there. And now that, if we make it smaller, you'll see that that is also connected to the initial property trigger for the player climbing out over 200 feet. The destination airport landing trigger and its POI are currently still linked to the first property trigger, so we need to link them instead to the proximity trigger. First, we right-click on the landing trigger's activation actual module, and we click detach and answer yes. It now appears as a separate section on the diagram down here. We do the same for the landing activation. Right click, detach, answer yes, and it too appears down here for the target landing POI. We're now going to reconnect these sections to the cruise ship proximity trigger. So first of all, find it and double click it to bring up its attributes, and we're going to put these new sections on where now? And on enter actions. Be careful about this because it is easy to make a mistake. And we do that for the target POI. Again on enter action. Got it. Okay. That completes the basic editing required to add the cruise ship POI to our original mission. As you can see, the mission is a little bit more complex, but not much. Now we look at whether there are still any errors, because down here, as you can see, it says there is one error associated with the mission. So let's bring up the All Errors window and look down the detail and find there's an error on cruise ship POI and the target name is not set. So click on cruise ship POI on the error list and then click in the green area to bring up the attributes. And notice that the target name is blank, so we're going to type in cruise ship there. And the error goes. Not a couple of warnings there. The cycle order is not unique on cruise ship POI. So we're back here. So let's put the cruise ship POI. Now that's 0. So it's the other one that needs to be changed. So let's find out where that is. It's here. See, the cycle order is 0 again, so let's change that to 1, and that goes. There are 3 problems still. There's one on the activate cruise ship proximity trigger, so let's look at that and move that across, and we notice that the proximity trigger is actually activated already. Now that is incorrect. That should only be activated by the object activation action. And that reduces that. The cruise ship dialogue, notice we haven't set the sound. Now that's not really a problem. The mission will run and the player will see that text on the screen momentarily, but we'll deal with putting sound files in at a later time. And lastly, the landing trigger, the runway filter is not set, which allows the player to land on any runway. Next, we should edit the second dialogue action to direct the player towards the cruise ship. So find the dialogue action. Let's get rid of the error list. It's up here. Double click on it, and we're going to change this to fly south towards Jersey and find the cruise ship. Fly south to... Remember, we'll do the sound wave at a later date. Well, that's just about it. You've completed the editing. We started off with a tutorial mission and we inserted a new section with a POI, a proximity trigger and a couple of dialogues to get the player to look for the cruise ship. And now all you have to do is to remember to save it, and now you can test it in Flight Sim World. Good luck and thanks for watching, and if you've any queries then either post them on YouTube or you can get hold of me on the Flight Sim World website, the forum. Thank you very much.